Hello children, welcome back to the class. In our last video, we discussed regarding the Renaissance and also some of the important features of the Renaissance. So let's continue our chapter, and in this video we'll be discussing regarding the impact of Renaissance. The Renaissance left a deep impact on every aspect of life, like painting, architecture, literature, and science, above all on human thinking. Okay, the first one, the artists of the Renaissance period freed themselves from medieval rules and traditions regarding religious themes and colors. Okay, so they freed themselves and they made realistic paintings and glorified human form in their paintings. They painted directly on the plastered walls that are called as frescoes. They also developed the technique of oil painting. Famous artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael were the famous painters or the artists during the Renaissance. So we'll see the paintings of Leonardo da Vinci. That is the picture of Mona Lisa, all of you are familiar with. The next one is the sculptures. The sculptures of the Renaissance age were greatly influenced by humanism. There is the human value. Okay, so they respected the human value, and this made the people to have a detailed study of human anatomy. What is anatomy? It is the study of the human body, how it works, how it functions. And they started carving the grace and beauty of the human body in their sculptures. The renowned outstanding sculptures of the Renaissance period were Donatello, who made the bronze statue of David, Michelangelo, who made a statue called Pieta. Okay, so this is the statue made by Michelangelo showing Mother Mary in a seated posture carrying the body of Jesus. The third one is Renaissance led to the use of local languages instead of Latin as the Middle Age. Okay, so in the Middle Ages they used in most of the literary works the Latin language. Okay, so which cannot be understandable to the local people or to the common people. Okay, so during the Renaissance they started using more and more the local languages. Besides the use of local languages, the authors of this period wrote on various aspects of human life rather than the spiritual themes. They try to highlight the problems that are faced by the human. The next point is the Renaissance spirit encouraged the scientific observation and experimentation. So whatever they say, they wanted to prove it. Okay, so they started asking the question why and how a particular thing had happened and how it must be. Okay, so they needed a proof to believe. Okay, so this encouraged them to observe and experiment many things. The scientific experiments led to many new inventions and discoveries. Some of these discoveries challenged the existing church beliefs. Okay, so they started asking questions against the church authority. For example, Copernicus, a Polish astronomer, proved that the earth revolves around the sun. Okay, not the sun revolving around the earth, but earth revolves around the sun, which was proved by Copernicus. The next point is the Renaissance spirit encouraged the scientific observation and experimentation. So whatever they say, they wanted to prove it. Okay, so they started asking the question why and how a particular thing had happened and how it must be. Okay, so they needed a proof to believe. Okay, so this encouraged them to observe and experiment many things. The scientific experiments led to many new inventions and discoveries. Some of these discoveries challenged the existing church beliefs. Okay, so they started asking questions against the church authority. For example, Copernicus, a Polish astronomer, proved that the earth revolves around the sun. Okay, not the sun revolving around the earth, but earth revolves around the sun, which was proved by Copernicus. German scientist, that is John Kepler, had proved Earth and other planets move around the sun in elliptical orbit, and an Italian scientist Galileo invented telescope. Sir Isaac Newton came up with the new theory, that is law of gravitation. John Gutenberg invented the printing press, and William Harvey, a physician who had found how blood circulates from heart through the arteries to various parts of the body. The next is the architects of the Renaissance period freed from medieval rules and regulations. Okay, freed themselves from the medieval rules and regulations, traditions, and started constructing beautiful monuments, churches, monasteries, and palaces. They blended various styles like Islamic, Greek, constructing the monuments. Okay, yeah. For example, St. Peter's Church in Rome is an excellent example of Renaissance architecture. It was designed and decorated by Michelangelo. Okay, you can see in this image the St. Peter's Church. So these are the impact of the Renaissance. Okay, so the Renaissance had its impact on art and architecture, on paintings, on sculptures, on scientific field. Okay, moreover, it had a great impact on the human thinking. Okay, so next move on to the next topic, that is the Reformation. Okay, the Reformation is a group of religious movements of the 16th century launched by the Christians against the various drawbacks of the church and the objectionable practices of the clergymen. So, what is Reformation? Reformation means it's a group of religious movements in the 16th century that has been launched by the Christians against the church. Okay, so the Reformation has spread in the countries like England, France, Germany, Czechoslovakia, Switzerland, and Scotland. Okay, though these movements did not share the same religious beliefs and rituals in different countries in Europe, yet they are collectively termed as Reformation because they were aimed at reforming the existing church. Okay, and these movements created a split in the Christian church between those who continued to remain loyal to the Pope at Rome, were known as Roman Catholics, and those who broke away from the church at Rome are called as Protestants. What made the people to fight against the church? The first point, people were dissatisfied with tithe, paying Peter's pence, and indulgence. What are these tithe and paying Peter's pence and indulgence? These are of a kind of tax that are being imposed on the people to pay to the church. Okay, for example, tithe, it's a tax which is being imposed on the people. 1/10 of their income has to be paid to the church. Okay, and the paying Peter's pence, it's a tax imposed on the people to build St. Peter's church. They have to give some donation to the church in order to complete the construction work of the St. Peter's church. And the next one is what is it? Indulgence. Okay, what is indulgence? It's a pardon certificate that has to be bought by the people in order to wash out their sins. Okay, normally as a human being we commit sins, we make some mistakes. If that has to be pardoned by God, they have to pay some amount and buy this certificate, pardon certificate. Okay, so these are the things that is being collected from the people, and here the people started thinking about why we need to pay all those things. Okay, yeah, so they started questioning about the taxes that they are supposed to pay to the church. The next one is some corrupt practices like charging for every transaction in life from birth to death. So for each and every thing, okay, for each and everything, fees has been collected from the people. Okay, for example, fees for the peace of the soul, fees for the souls of the people who have died long before, fees for the salvation of the soul, pronunciation or pronouncing a marriage lawful or unlawful, some other rules and regulations. For everything they had to pay the amount. Okay, some of the clergymen lacked proper education and they lived in luxurious life, and they neglected their religious duties that's supposed to be done by the clergymen to the people. Okay, so they are supposed to live a simple and ordinary life, whereas they looted the money from the people and they started enjoying their life. Okay, the next point is Pope's interference in the political affairs. Okay, so Pope, the religious head, has to take or has to look out only to the religious matters, whereas slowly they started interfering with the political affairs. Okay, for example, when Pope Clement II interfered in the political affairs of the France, okay, the French King Philip IV, the king forced the Pope to leave his headquarters at Rome and he has to stay in Avignon in France. Okay, the similar thing had happened with the King Henry IV of England, took away the church lands, closed a number of monasteries and took away their buildings and land and money, since the Pope interfered with the political affairs of the king. Okay. The next point, the spirit of new learning and spirit of inquiry, which developed the Renaissance, broadened the mental outlook of the people, and they started questioning everything. Especially they started questioning the authority of the Pope and the church practices. Okay. The last point is regarding Martin Luther, who is the person who started this Reformation. So he is a clergyman, he is a priest, and he was also a professor of theology at the University of Wittenberg. Okay, he openly criticized the Pope and the church and all the malpractices that were done by the clergymen, and he launched a movement against the abuses in the church. Okay, and later on this had taken form movement, okay, called Reformation. The next one is Counter Reformation. In order to restore the credibility of the Catholic Church, okay, a large number of dedicated Christians, including some popes, introduced certain reforms within the church. Once the Reformation had taken place in the European countries, okay, the church slowly started counter reforming the church. Okay, so this we call it as a counter reformation. As a result of this counter reformation, different religious orders were found. Different religious groups started taking birth within the Catholic Church. Okay, so one of them was the Society of Jesus, which was founded by Ignatius Loyola, a Spanish noble. It speedily gained recognition and was successful in winning back more adherents in Europe, India, China, Africa, and the Americas. Okay, Saint Francis Xavier, who was a follower of Ignatius Loyola, came to India and he worked till his death. So we'll stop here and the remaining will continue in the next video. Go through the video carefully and understand.